I'm Ivan Lichtenstein,
And I'm Jackson Witsell.
and this is Movies at State. And on today's episode, we're going to be discussing our top 5 movies of 2015 because as we roll into the new year, we want to remember the movies that made last year so great. And so the way it's going to work is that I'm going to list my top 5, Jackson's going to list his top 5, and then we're going to bounce off one another and discuss why these movies are on our list. So Jackson, do you want to discuss your top 5 going from 5 to 1?
Yes, my top 5 from 2015 are Ant-Man, Star Wars The Force Awakens, Inside Out, The Martian, and Mad Max Fury Road.
Alright, great choices. And my top 5 are... At number 5 is going to be Star Wars The Force Awakens. Number 4 is going to be The Hateful Eight. Number 3 is going to be Anomalisa. Number 2 is going to be The End of the Tour. And number 1 is going to be The Revenant.
Which I have not seen yet.
It's fantastic.
I will be seeing it.
I'll talk more about it once I get to it on my list. But for now, I'm going to talk about Star Wars The Force Awakens and what I liked about it. And so before I saw Star Wars and before all the hype, I knew that J.J. Abrams was going to direct this movie, and I had high hopes for that because I saw Star Trek. I know what the guy can do with the camera, and I know what the guy can do with the script. And once he implied all that in Star Wars, I was wowed and amazed. And he did the movie justice. He didn't just like plop a bunch of random characters in there and just give him a bunch of bunch of dialogue all over the place like the dreaded prequels.
He gave it a lot more energy than the prequels had.
Oh, definitely. And it didn't also rely on nostalgia. And what I mean by that is that there were characters in the movie like the classic characters like Luke Skywalker, Han Solo, Princess Leia, Chewbacca, C-3PO, but didn't take up a majority of the movie. So instead, he had characters like Finn, Rey, and he developed those characters and made them have backgrounds and stories that we, the audience, could get really interested into. And I also gotta praise his use of practical effects in a largely CGI movie world, because he could have easily just had CGI in this movie 100% of the time, like more than the prequels, obviously. And while there was some CGI in the movie, like that monster in the Millennium Falcon looked really dumb, and also there was I forget the name of the character, but the actress Lupita Nyong'o plays the character, and she looked
Maz.
Maz, that's her name.
Yeah.
I thought that looked kind of CGI. Not as bad as the prequels, but still kind of CGI. And also Snoke.
Yeah, Snoke looked a little bit worse than she did, but she looked okay, but could have been, practical effects.
Yeah. So that's pretty much my take on Star Wars, and that's why has the number 5 spot on my list.
All right, the number 5 spot on my list is Ant-Man, which came out this summer. It was a really funny movie. In my opinion, one of the funnier Marvel movies, that along with Guardians of the Galaxy. I think what was really good about this particular movie was they had a concept that a lot of people thought, might not have been able to work. A lot of people laughed when they thought, oh, Ant-Man's coming out in theaters like that. That doesn't sound like a very big blockbuster, little Ant-Man, but they really made the concept work. Yeah, they were wrong. They made the concept work really well. I really enjoyed that Edgar Wright was one of the screenwriters. I always enjoy his humor.
It sucks that he wasn't the director, though, and he didn't get to direct the movie that he wanted to make.
That was my biggest complaint about it.
That was awful. I didn't like that at all.
Yeah, that's why it's number 5, because my other 4 were movies that I really loved, and this one I liked, but, I just had to pick a number 5, so... But I think that was overall a good movie with pretty memorable setup. It's not the best movie of the year by far, but it was definitely memorable. So, go on to your number 4.
All right, so my number 4 is Quentin Tarantino's The Hateful Eight, and the movie has a fantastic score done by Ennio Morricone, who's amazingly 87 years old and still writing scores for movies, and they still hold up. They are some of my favorite scores that I've ever seen in movies. This is a given, but Quentin Tarantino's he's one of my favorite screenwriters. I don't know if he's my favorite, but it has a great narrative. And that's just a given because all of his movies have had pretty great narratives throughout, like from Pulp Fiction to Reservoir Dogs to Kill Bill, Inglourious Basterds, the list goes on. And this is pretty straightforward, but it's just a lot of fucking fun.
Oh yeah,
it
was really fun.
Yeah, if you want the blood, if you want the guts, if you want the shoot 'em up action, who done it, like the movie's almost like Clue, but it's more action oriented. It's more bloody and all that. It's just lots of fucking fun. It's very Quentin Tarantino-esque.
Would you say it's a good installment in Tarantino's world?
Oh, of course, yeah.
Good.
I mean, Quentin Tarantino is my favorite director. He's the one who inspired me to get into film, and this film definitely does his filmography justice. And another thing I loved about the movie is that it feels tense with the environment, and what I mean by that is that when you see them outside during the blizzard, you feel very cold in the theater, and it's been a while since I felt like that throughout a movie, and when Ennio Morricone's score plays through all the tension-filled moments, you feel tense yourself. And that's the way you should feel during a movie. Don't you agree?
Yeah. I think you were telling me, did you ever find out if it was filmed during an actual blizzard?
I did not. I forgot to look that up last night, but if it was filmed during an actual blizzard, I just give that movie a lot more respect. And if it's not, that's okay, obviously. Because
well, obviously they convinced you almost that it was.
If they make me have the thought of thinking that it was filmed during a blizzard, the movie just gets automatic respect points based off of that.
Yeah, it succeeded in that regard then.
Yeah.
So my number 4 is one that was your number 5, but Star Wars The Force Awakens. My biggest thing I have to say with this movie was that when you take away all the hype behind it, because this movie was hyped, quite possibly
arguably the most anticipated movie of all time.
Yeah, the highest hype movie probably we've ever had.
Ever since Phantom Menace.
Well, it's better than Phantom Menace.
It's a good thing it wasn't a fucking repeat.
No. We actually get a villain that isn't killed off yet at the end, so we have a consistent villain throughout the trilogy. But my big thing here, why it is on my list, is because it really breathed new life into a series that hadn't felt it in 30 years.
Oh, I definitely agree.
You know, because you have the prequels, which are just so monotone, poorly acted, poorly
written.
There
were strange negotiations.
Yeah, there's no trade negotiations.
You are my brother, Anakin!
No space politics in this one. No, I hate sand. None of those crappy lines. So, overall, had good characters. It was well acted. I got really into the new characters. Finn, the stormtrooper, was a very unique take on the stormtrooper character.
It gave him like a human personality.
It gave
robotic personality.
It gave humanity to these soldiers that have just been known for missing things. And I guess one complaint you could have about the movie is that after the first scene, the stormtroopers do go back to missing everything that they fire at. But that's just a Star Wars thing.
That's just what they do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think overall I was just really pleased with the movie, and I think it definitely deserved to be the highest grossing film in the United States of all time, because I think it just hit that recently.
Really? Because I knew when I was reading articles it surpassed Titanic, and I knew it was going to do that. I had a feeling it was going to do that, and it did.
Yeah, it's at least. I mean, I'm pretty sure I read somewhere, and it's the internet, so sources are not always accurate. But I read it was number 1. It definitely did pass Titanic, and that would put it at least number 2.
Yeah,
because the only one would be Avatar. But I think it might have surpassed Avatar as well. So it definitely deserved it, and good on for J.J. Abrams actually putting out a good Star Wars movie.
I'm sure he's a fan himself, so he wanted to make a good movie for the fans and for critics alike. Yeah. And it was commercially and critically successful, so great for him.
Yeah, and I think overall the best thing we can say about it was that George Lucas was not involved. So you can go on to your...
I just have a love-hate relationship with him.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. All right, so my number 3 is Anomalisa by Charlie Kaufman. And this movie didn't really get a lot of release dates. It's a very limited release, but it's critically acclaimed. It won the Grand Jury Prize, and from what I've heard, critics and audiences love it. I'm not going to give too much about the plot or say anything about the plot, because it's better you go into this movie not knowing what the hell it is, what the fuck it is, or what the fuck it's about. So I love the spotlight on claymation in this movie. Claymation is an art form that I truly love in movies, and I think it doesn't even matter if the movie's bad. The fact that you use claymation in a movie just makes me herald it as great.
It's not used enough these days.
Yeah, it's not used enough. I mean, there's Fantastic Mr. Fox, and there are some foreign movies that use claymation, but in the American market, there's not enough of it, and I think there needs to be more. And even though these characters are claymated in the movie, they felt like real people. Like the way it's written and the way the dialogue works, you think these people could have a conversation in real life if you're on Cortlandt Street or Peachtree Street or whatever street in Atlanta. And the dialogue was extremely well executed. Charlie Kaufman wrote the movie, and he's one of my favorite screenwriters. He did movies like Being John Malkovich, Adaptation, Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, and just recently he began directing movies like Synecdoche, New York, and most recently Anomalisa. And so I think he's one of the best screenwriters ever. He should keep doing what he's doing. I love his writing. And there's a lot of interpretive themes in Anomalisa that aren't really, that leave a lot open to the imagination. I'm not going to get into them. I'm going to let the audience watch it for themselves and see what they think. I have my own interpretations on them, but that's a whole different story. And also the score was really well executed in the movie. It wasn't used too much, it wasn't used too little, it was used during the right scenes at the right time.
All right. Well, my number 3 is also an animated feature, Inside Out, which should be no surprise to any of you because it got high critical acclaim, and overall, this is probably the best Pixar movie we've gotten in several years, quite possibly since the first 10 minutes of Up, and the most emotionally investing story we've gotten since then as well. I think the thing that really stands out about this movie is even though you've got a lot of the characters are sort of stereotypes and they don't go into a whole lot of detail with the characterizations for a lot of these, what really stands out about this movie in particular, because the concept has been done before, so you think it would be something that might not be the most original, but the message is really powerful. The whole thing with sadness, and I won't really spoil it, but it really goes into a good moral that not only adults can kind of learn from, but also it's really good for kids to be able to address this kind of issue in a movie that's directed towards them. I also really enjoyed the animation. The little bubbly textures that they gave to the emotion characters was a nice little touch. I mean, it took a lot of work, and I definitely respect the effort that they put into it, so that was really good. And I thought that the humor was pretty consistent. You know, it wasn't Pixar's funniest movie, but it definitely had consistent humor, and it fit well with the dramatic moments. And overall, the movie did suffer from a couple small pacing issues, but as a whole, its tone was very good, its characters worked, and overall, it just was a very good animated film for the year.
Well, I enjoyed it, Inside Out too, but honestly, I think Pixar is overrated. I don't care if people.
Yeah.
I don't care if people
Nowadays
like
it
any
is.
grudge. Yeah, nowadays it is. It used to be good, but
They're still good.
They still put out good movies.
They're
but,
still
like,
good.
They're
It's not
like,
amazing.
Great, yeah.
Not revolutionary.
And while I enjoyed
anymore.
Inside Out, I do have a couple of flaws with it, and some positives too. I'm gonna start off with the flaws first. Some of the flaws are that it's not really like as original as people think it is, because there's been stuff that has been put out like Osmosis Jones and stuff like that. So Pixar could have gotten ideas from there and put
that
it
one
into a movie.
SpongeBob episode.
What was that?
The one SpongeBob episode where all the little SpongeBobs are in his brain. It also ripped off SpongeBob, so
I do remember that.
It's an idea that's been done many times, so.
Yeah, and also that the characters didn't really feel as realistic to me as they do in Anomalisa or any other previous Pixar movie. Like,
Yeah.
Andy in Toy Story was completely relatable to a child, and I watched that recently, and I completely understand why he's relatable and what makes him relatable.
I think also
this one was
yeah.
like the one in Inside Out. I forget the girl's name, but
Riley.
Riley.
Yeah.
She just seems like a recycled version of Andy, just female.
Yeah.
So
I think with Andy,
didn't add a lot of pizzazz to me.
I think with Andy too, we got a lot less of him. So what we saw, I think, was more realistic of him. Whereas Riley, she's a really like one of the main
She's at the
focus.
center
Yeah,
of the
she's
movie.
at the center.
Everything's in her head, so everything's controlled by her.
So she kind of would need to have a little bit more of a personality, but she doesn't, which is a little bit of a flaw. But I did have a conversation with somebody recently where we discussed the movie, and my friend brought up a really good point that the focus of the movie really is the message and and how the emotions affect people. And I think Riley was almost meant to be sort of like a blank slate. Yeah, she wasn't the most interesting, but I think she was relatable enough for any person to be able to put themselves into that kind of situation, which was a pretty generic situation, you know, moving to a new city. Like, I think a lot of people can relate to that. So I think it was just trying to reach out to as many people as it could.
Yeah, and the film definitely had highlights in it too, like the way the emotions acted towards decisions Riley made were pretty logical, although there were some non-logical things, like that scene when Riley orders a broccoli pizza. And then my initial thought that went into my head was like, wait a minute, doesn't disgusting the emotion have anything to say about this? Wouldn't she implement or do something about this so that this wouldn't happen? And also, it's kind of plot convenient. I'm not going to spoil it, but there's something in the movie that's kind of convenient that goes on in her head, but it's convenient, so I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
Okay. So the number 2 movie on my list is The End of the Tour, starring Jesse Eisenberg and Jason Segel. I almost mixed that up. And this movie is about a writer named David. I forget the writer's name, but he's a writer for Rolling Stone, and he interviews David Foster Wallace, who's this author. And the way he interviews him is that he lives with him for a couple of days, and just gets to know him a little bit, and that get to knowing it builds into a really great friendship that they built together. And I have to say, this movie is the most underrated movie of 2015. I saw it at one of my independent theaters that I live near, and it was fucking fantastic. The chemistry between Jesse Eisenberg and Jason Segel is just amazing. I never thought these two actors would have this much chemistry in a movie, and this just wowed me completely, because I've seen Jesse Eisenberg act, and he's been great. He's been in The Social Network. I thought he was great. He's going to be Lex Luthor. I don't know.
That's going to be interesting.
Yeah, we'll see how that works.
We'll see if that's good or bad.
But other than that, Jason Segel, I've seen him in movies. I like him as a person. I never thought he was like a great actor, but my fucking God, when I saw him in this movie, I was amazed.
Yeah, it really interests me that you said he was really good, because I've always seen him.
You should definitely see this movie.
I've always seen him in very generic kind of roles. He's always just kind of the bumbling goofball, and not much else is developed with him.
Yeah, and these characters are well fleshed out. They don't seem like stocks. They don't seem like movie characters, so to speak. They feel like real people, just like in Anomalisa, except these people are actually live-action actors. And this is also the best screenplay I've heard all year, which is surprising because Charlie Kaufman's one of my favorite screenwriters, and he did Anomalisa. And I'm not trying to say that screenplay was bad at all. It's just this screenplay felt natural. It flowed better in the movie. Mm-hmm. Like, there are scenes where they're in cars having conversations, and I'm just smiling because I'm interested and invested within the conversation. And the acting just adds to that as well, because it's also very well acted.
All right, my number 2 spot, pretty straightforward, is The Martian. All I really have to say about this is it had amazing effects and visuals, a really good score. It had a well-thought-out plot that was relatable. The characters... Okay, well, the plot wasn't relatable. Obviously, most of us don't get stuck on Mars.
It won comedy at the Golden Globes. It was nominated, and it won.
I mean,
It'd be Trainwreck.
But...
like, what the fuck?
Yeah. But it had relatable characters, and I felt like all the characters had good motivations. Like, it wasn't, like, there is conflict with, will they go back and will they, rescue him from Mars? And even the people who were saying, no, you shouldn't, like, they have their motivation. There's no real villain. It's just you have different characters with different motivations, and it has to serve the purpose of the plot. So, not a whole lot to say about it, other than just really good, and it was fun to watch.
Yeah, it was pretty straightforward. I mean,
Matt Damon gave a great performance. Yeah, he was really good in it. He was really funny. He was really entertaining. I think he really kept the movie going. I think without a strong lead character like this, or a lead actor, we wouldn't have gotten it to be as solid as it was, but nonetheless, very solid.
All right, my number 1 pick of the top number 1 movie of 2015 is The Revenant.
No surprise.
Yeah. The Revenant completely wowed me when I saw it in theaters. I've never felt this way in a movie ever since 2 years ago, I guess, and when I saw, Prisoners? Yeah. But this movie completely floored me. It has the best cinematography I've seen all year. Alejandro Gonzalez Iñárritu should keep... I forget his first name, but it's Lubeski as a cinematographer, because that guy does amazing cinematography work. He did it for Birdman, and it completely wowed me, and he did it for this movie, and it floored me. And I love that whole man versus wild element in it.
Yeah.
Because when you watch the trailer, you think it's like this whole revenge tale about this fur trapper getting revenge on this other guy for killing his son. But it's not. It is, essentially, but for the most part, it's this whole man versus wild element. Because it's just Leonardo DiCaprio as this guy who has to just face every single nature disaster going up against him as he makes his way back to his homeland. And I love all the long takes in the movie. Long takes are my favorite thing in a movie. I love long tracking shots in movies. And the reason for that being is that whenever there's an action scene filmed in this movie, I feel like I'm actually there, and it's not just like a fast-paced cut in that movie. And Leo and Tom Hardy's performance Both of their performances were excellent.
Those are some A-list actors right there.
Oh yeah, I felt like Leo's performance in The Wolf of Wall Street was very good. Not enough to win an Oscar, but when I saw him in this movie, I fucking hope he wins the Oscar.
It's about damn time.
It's about damn fucking time.
It really is.
Yeah, and Tom Hardy's performance in this movie was excellent as well. He plays the villain in the movie, but it's not like he's just like a stock villain. There's something in his mind. There's kind of a sinister thing going on.
He's not
with
Bane
him.
this time.
No, he's not Bane. I don't know what accent that was, but whatever.
Yeah, the Bane voice is hard to do.
Yeah, and I love the whole environment, tense feel of it, because Alejandro Gonzalez Iñárritu and his whole cast and crew were in wherever they were for like 9 months in the freezing cold. And when a couple of the crew members got mad that he was so demanding that they just quit. And I remember a quote from him saying, "We could film this in CGI. We could be inside drinking coffee all day, but the movie is going to be a piece of shit." I totally respect him for that because I love the hard work and effort he put into this movie to make it what it is, and what it is an absolutely phenomenal piece of work.
So you're saying then that them using the practical effects and actually going outside really served the purpose and was totally worth it.
It was definitely worth
That's
it.
That's really
and that's
good.
like a director who cares about his audience and wants his audience to enjoy a great movie. And the score is just fantastic. It's the best movie score all year I've seen. I think I might have said that with The Hateful Eight, but they're like neck and neck, honestly.
Who did the score for this one?
I forget, but I'll look it up when I have the time. But that's pretty much my list for the top 5 of 2015. And Jackson, you will conclude us?
All right, so my number one spot for 2015 is Mad Max Fury Road. Shouldn't be a huge surprise. This was a really big film early on this past year. I'm going to go out on a limb and say it is the best action movie in several years.
That's fair to say. That's
because I would say it was the best action movie of all time, but there's Die Hard and a couple other classics that I'd still say are better.
Those still stand the test of time, but
yeah.
Like this one was released this past year, so you don't know yet.
Yeah, we need to just give it some time to see if it still holds up, but I think it will. I mean, because the practical effects used here are so good, and I think one reason too why this movie for me really pushed the boundaries and became my number one on the list. I think the reason is because it really made, in my opinion, it made practical effects big again, and it kind of popularized them again. I know, for instance, like the new Star Wars, they were going to use practical effects. They've been playing on it for a while, but I noticed that after Mad Max came out, the Star Wars crew, they really started pushing these videos online of them showing off their practical effects. So I think it really helped push practical effects back into filmmaking, and I think it's made it a much more respectable art form again. We're not taking the easy way out like we were with a lot of the CGI. Let's see. Has very good characters. Furiosa is really well done. Max, of course, is really well done. It's got a really unique style to it. I just love the universe that it's in. This world is just very detailed, very gritty. It's just like it was back with the other films like 30 years ago. But I think for me, it is my number one because it follows the film rule of show don't tell, and that's really important for movies to be able to do. And not enough movies and screenwriters are able to capture this like they were. So it's really well paced. It follows all the best rules of film and tells us a complete story visually and not just through dialogue. And lastly, my final point on why it was the best movie of 2015. The motherfucking badass guitar player that shoots flames out of his guitar.
Motherfucking yeah.
That was fucking badass and probably the best moment.
Movie, so that completely.
That was the best moment of 2015 I had, period. So that's why Mad Max Fury Road is my number one pick. So that's all we got for today. I'm Jackson Witsell.
I'm Lichtenstein, and thank you for listening in on Movies at State.
See you later.